Imagine this, it's 19th century Japan. We're talking the era of traditional samurai, where swords are strapped to waist and top knots are the absolute standard. But then, right in the middle of this classic old-world Japanese landscape, something completely unbelievable appears. It is a massive, mathematically perfect, star-shaped fortress that looks like it was literally copy-pasted right out of a European battlefield. In this explainer, we are digging into this highly cinematic historical mystery and uncovering the absolutely wild life of the genius who actually built it, Takeda Ayasaburo. Okay, let's dive right into this. Up in Hakodate, Hokkaido, sits this fortress known as Goryokaku. Now you really have to ask yourself, why on earth is there a gigantic, flawless, geometric Western-style star fort in a country that at the time was totally dominated by swords and bows? I mean, who built this thing and why? Back then, Japan definitely didn't have the technology or the know-how to pull off something this advanced. It's like finding a spaceship in the middle of a medieval village.
And that actually brings us to our second big mystery. Tucked away on the grounds of this very fort stands a quiet bronze statue of a samurai. But if you look closely, there's something super weird about it. His face, and specifically his forehead, is polished to this bright, shining, golden gleam. Well, this guy is Takeda Ayasaburo. And believe it or not, that shiny golden head of his holds the ultimate key to our entire story today.
Chapter 1, A Samurai da Vinci.
So let's rewind a bit to 1827. Ayasaburo is born into a super strict samurai family where martial arts basically meant everything. His dad was the kind of guy who'd scold him by saying, a samurai should focus on guts, not logic. Basically, bravery was all that mattered. But you know, this kid's curiosity was just unstoppable. Completely defying his father's strict warrior code, a 12-year-old Ayasaburo was out there building his own functional boats and mixing up weird chemical potions with sulfur and mercury. Underneath that samurai exterior, he was a total science nerd.
Eventually, he actually left home to study something called Rengaku, or Dutch learning. You see, Japan was heavily isolated from the rest of the world at this time. Studying Western science, medicine, and engineering through smuggled Dutch textbooks was literally the only window into what the outside world was up to. And Ayasaburo, he became completely obsessed. He was so incredibly dedicated to reading these texts, even when he couldn't afford a dictionary, that he actually ruined his own eyesight from studying so much.
Chapter 2. The Arrival of the Black Ships.
Let's set the scene here. It's 1853, and a world-shattering event hits Japan: the Black Ships. Terrifying massive American steamships led by Commodore Perry roll in, belching thick black smoke. The traditional samurai who only really knew swords and outdated cannons went into a total panic. It was a massive collision of two worlds: the isolated, honor-bound samurai with their swords against a global empire packing steam power and heavy artillery. While everyone else was furious and wanted to charge in with their swords, Ayasaburo stayed cool. He realized right then and there, if Japan wanted to survive, they absolutely had to learn the enemy's science.
So what does he do? He actually boards the terrifying foreign ships. The Americans were completely stunned. Here was this tall, handsome Japanese scholar, casually speaking excellent Dutch, and eagerly asking highly complex engineering questions. Samuel Wells Williams, the American interpreter, even wrote down, he was tall, his curiosity was matched by his deep academic knowledge. To figure out how to protect his country, Ayasaburo fearlessly jumped right into the belly of the beast to learn.
Chapter 3. Building the Star. Now what's really interesting about this slide is just how much this guy actually accomplished. The ruling shogunate was desperate to defend the northern port of Hakodate from foreign threats, so they ordered Ayasaburo to build an impenetrable fortress. But he didn't just stop at the fort. Check out this Japanese Da Vinci level of output. He designed the Star Fort, built Japan's very first space heater to survive the freezing winters, constructed massive smelting furnaces for iron, created an open academy for all social classes, and even sailed a ship to Russia. He was single-handedly modernizing the entire region. But his absolute masterpiece is Goryokaku. And here's the craziest part. He had never even been to Europe. How did he do it? He used a single, solitary Dutch textbook on fortifications and had a few brief conversations with some visiting French sailors. That's it. From just those two things, he designed this massive, five-pointed star fortress with literally zero blind spots for cannons. It was an absolute stroke of architectural genius. Of course, building it was a massive hurdle. We're talking an incredible 7-year effort. Construction kicked off in 1857 with up to 6,000 workers on site every single day.
When the freezing northern dirt embankments started cracking from the cold, he quickly pivoted and replaced them with solid stone walls brought in from miles away. Finally, in 1864, this sweeping European masterpiece was completed right in the snowing north of Japan.
Chapter 4. Refusing the Sword.
Right after the fort was finished, the situation in Japan took a really dark turn. The Boshin War erupted, plunging the country into a violent civil war and bringing the whole samurai era to a very bloody end. As a high-ranking military engineer, everyone expected Ayasaburo to fight, but he made a shocking decision. He refused to draw his sword against his own countrymen. For him, true strength wasn't about fighting in a pointless war. It was about protecting knowledge and making sure the next generation survived.
He actually had this really stoic philosophy on anger. He once said, "A samurai ignores insults or draws his sword to kill. Anything else lowers you to their level." It sounds a bit intense, sure, but what he really meant was mastering self-control. Instead of giving in to anger and violence, he actively chose the pen over the sword. He used his brilliant mind for a higher purpose, to protect his students instead of destroying his enemies.
So the crucial point is this number right here, 22. Because he refused to lend his military genius to the Civil War, he was labeled a traitor. 22 assassins actually attacked his home. He barely escaped with his life and was forced to go into hiding, completely changing his name just to survive the chaos.
Epilogue: The Shiny Egg.
When the dust finally settled and Japan became a modern nation, Ayasaburo was called upon once again. He poured everything he had into building the modern Japanese Army's academy, but tragically, the sheer exhaustion caught up with him. He passed away from overwork at just 53 years old. But hey, that brings us right back to our opening mystery. Why is the head of his bronze statue so shiny? Well, for generations, students visiting Goryokaku have been rubbing his head, hoping that just a little bit of the Japanese Da Vinci's incredible genius will rub off on them. He's remembered not for the people he killed, but for the brilliant mind he used to build a better future.
Takeda Ayasaburo's story leaves us with a really powerful question. In a chaotic world where people are so quick to panic, draw their swords, and fight, how will you use your mind? When you face your own challenges, will you reach for a weapon, or will you use your intellect to build something lasting? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through history. See you next time.